Hello, and welcome to my tutorial on Individualized Education Plans. An IEP is a legal document for students who receive special education services. It is a plan on how all parties in the student's life will work together to better the child's education. It is important for all special education students to have an IEP because it legally documents the goals, accommodations, and steps in place to better the child's education. It is important for parents to know that an IEP is to be filled out collaboratively with school officials. During this tutorial, I will be talking about the different sections of the IEP. If you would like to pause the video at any time to actually read the content in the IEP, you are more than welcome to. The introduction. The introduction to an IEP is personal information of the student. Either it will already be filled out before the IEP meeting, or it will be filled out together in the meeting. Parents should make sure that all of the information is correct. Section 1. Section 1 of the IEP is type of meeting. If this is the first IEP meeting for the parent's child, their eligibility will have the initial eligibility meeting box checked. If the child already had an IEP in place, it may be a 3-year reevaluation. Finally, if the school or parent may have asked for a meeting to reevaluate the IEP because something is not going as planned, it will be a special evaluation. Under the IEP section, the box options are an annual review, where a new IEP does not have to be written, but instead it is reviewed to make sure everything is going well. Initial IEP is the first IEP meeting for the student. An amendment to an IEP is if either a school official or parent wants to add an accommodation or modification to the already created IEP document. And finally, the not available option in this section is for a child who did not qualify for an IEP but were looked at. Section 2. Section 2 of an IEP are the dates of the meetings. This section is very important. An IEP is an official document, so the school is liable for making sure an IEP is taken care of by a designated period of time. Schools must hold one-year IEP meetings to review the IEP. An IEP must be recreated every 3 years to update goals, scores, and accommodations. Therefore, keeping track of meeting dates is very critical. A checkbox will ask if transitional goals are included for a student who is 15 or older. This is for older students and helps figure out how they will work together to transition the child from high school to whatever the next choice is afterwards. Section 3. Section 3 of an IEP is student and family information. This section has more personal information about the student and their family. In this section, a parent will find what school the child is currently attending, what disability the child is qualified under for special education, ethnicity and languages spoken, students can qualify for special education services under many different disabilities. These can include other health impairment, learning disability, autism, deafness, deaf-blindness, early childhood, visual impairment, emotional impairment, traumatic brain injury, orthopedic impairment, multiple disorders, intellectual disability, hard of hearing, established medical disability, and developmental delay. This sample IEP has a child qualified under a learning disability. Section 4. Section 4 of the IEP is procedural safeguards. This section is for the parent in the IEP meeting. The parent must check whether or not the meeting was held to accommodate their native language. Section 5. Section 5 of the IEP is the IEP participants. In this section, a complete list of who attended the IEP meeting must be included. People who are required to be at an IEP meeting legally are at least one general education teacher of the child, at least one special education teacher of the child, an administrator, the parents must be invited to the meeting, and the meeting's date or time should accommodate a parent's schedule. A parent is not required to be at the meeting if they decide not to attend. The child may be invited if it is appropriate. A parent can bring an advocate for their child, like a lawyer, if they choose to do so. If a child receives other services like speech or occupational therapy, those providers should also attend the meeting. Section 6. Section 6 of the IEP is the biggest and most important section of the IEP. It is the present level of academic achievement and functional performance, including input from parent and student. The first part of this section is the student's strengths, preferences, and interests. It will give a short story of the student. It should include input from the student and their parent. It should include the student's personality, educational strengths, and outside activities. The next part is the present level of educational performance summary. This section should include a description of the results from the standardized test given to the student to qualify them for special education services. This test could be the Woodcock-Johnson or Ames-Webb. It should also include the student's grades in the current school year and evaluation reports from all areas, including education, physical motor, physical development, independent functioning, social emotional, and participation in home and community. This description should explain how the disability affects the student's educational performance. In IEP meetings that follow the initial IEP, progress should be reported for previous set goals in this portion. The next part is describe the age-appropriate transition assessment process used to develop post-school goals. This part is to be filled out for students who are 15 years old. It should give the child's results from a career interest inventory. It should include students' interests. The next part is students' need and impact of disability. This part should include a description of how the student's disability affects his or her involvement and progress in the general curriculum and participation in appropriate activities. Students' needs may be listed here too. For example, Bobby needs to increase his writing skills. The next part is measurable post-school goals. This part is completed at the first IEP after the child turns 15. This should include what steps the student will be taking to prepare for post-grad education, employment, and independent living. Goals should be included for all three stated post-grad areas. Section 7. Section 7 of the IEP document is consideration of special factors. It has different considerations that are asked to see if the child needs other document plans. These document plans could be behavioral plans, health plans, limited English proficiency plans, assistive technology devices or services, special transportation. Section 8. Section 8 of the IEP document is post-school considerations. Once a child is 15, this section will look at the graduation, date of graduation, what document they will receive at graduation, like a diploma or a certificate of completion, and what they plan for the student's next step after high school. This could be furthering the student's education, a trade school, employment, or living arrangements. Section 9 of the IEP. Section 9 of the IEP is annual goals and/or objectives. Here, this parent will find area of needs the student has, measurable goal, and how each goal will be measured. This should also state how a teacher will assess the progress. Also, this section will state how progress will be given to the parents on the goals and how frequently the progress should be given. Section 10, Accommodations and Modifications. Section 10 of the IEP is Accommodations and Modifications. Modifications are changed standards for the student to access the general education curriculum. Accommodations are services for the student that are necessary for the student to make effective progress. Accommodations, modifications. Section 11. Section 11 of the IEP is Extended School Year Determination. If a child is regressing or requires long periods of time to learn a topic, they may be eligible for extended school year services. Section 12. Section 12 of the IEP is State District Assessments. This section lets parents and teachers decide if the child will take the regular state or district standardized assessment or if they will have an alternate test. It also lets parents and teachers choose any accommodations the student will have during these assessments. District assessments, state assessments, accommodations. Section 13. Section 13 of the IEP is the Service Delivery Statement. This section is the services the child will receive, the frequency of the services, and the amount of hours required per week at each service. For example, Bobby will get special education hours in the special ed classroom, 1 hour per day, 5 days a week. Section 14. Section 14 of the IEP is Recommended Placement in the Least Restrictive Environment. This section should give a description of how much of the student's time will be spent in a general education classroom and how much time in a special education classroom. Our goal is to have them in a general ed classroom as much as possible. Section 15. Section 15 of the IEP is Prior Written Notice. This looks at all options that were considered for the student and why those options did not work for the student. Finally, there is a checkbox at the end of the IEP that is for the parent to confirm that they were provided a copy of the IEP document of their own. Thank you for listening to my tutorial. If you have any questions, please put them below in a comment section.